Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert Podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back to the Dirt and Vert Podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we have the luxury of having Mr. Justin Hamilton with us today, who just finished up, if you can read his shirt, the Fierce Dragon H9 200 miler, which we'll get to talk about that race later in this podcast. But Justin won it with a little over 4 days out there in the wilderness, having fun in that one. Can't wait to hear that story. But Justin, before we get into that, tell us a little about who you are and how you got into running.
Yeah, man. So I'm a 36-year-old married father of two. I currently run a restaurant kitchen in a hopping and popping little tourist town. I live in northern Georgia, and I live on one side of a mountain. It's a 45-minute drive to get over the mountain to another little tourist town, and that's where I work. It's pretty cool, man. I get to take like a scenic byway every day to work, and I get, I see some crazy stuff. I see some wild animals. I see bear crossing the road. I saw a wild boar eating another wild boar the other day. Yeah, it was pretty wild. I thought it was, I saw it and I said, oh man, that's so sad. That pig is standing next to its dead friend. And I turned around and I was going to video or, take a picture or whatever. And I was like, oh no, he's eating his friend. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, gives a little picture of like where I live, man. Live up in the woods, up in the mountains in North Georgia. And, I got into running when I was about 20 years old. I was going to join the Army, and, I was like smoking cigarettes and probably just a little bit overweight at the time. And I went into like one of those like Burlington shoes or like Rack Room shoes or something like that. And I bought just a pair of Nikes. And now knowing what I bought, I'm like, those are like what your dad mows his lawn in, but when you're a kid. And so those are what I bought. I threw the cigarettes away and I ran 2 miles to my mom's house. And I know it took me over 20 minutes. And I was like a 20-year-old kid and I knew that wasn't good. And so I was like, well, I'm going to move this light real quick because it's going to blind me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to work on that. I'm going to work on this run here and use this as like a measure my performance gain and whatnot. And then, I quickly started seeing progress and I was like, well, let's try some other routes. And I know there was Garmin out. So this was 2011 time frame. So I know there was Garmin watches out, maybe like one or two, or like the TomTom, but not many. This was still the era of get in your car, reset the odometer, drive 2 miles. Okay, that tree, I'll remember that tree. Or I would usually set like a gallon of water, and then I'd get there and drink some and run back or something. And then so I started doing that, and then each time, as the weeks would go on, I'd start running further and further out. And then my mom convinced me to run a half marathon, to sign up for one. So I did, and I remember I trained entirely for the half marathon on a treadmill at a Gold's Gym. And it was just because it was so easy, because I would do an 8-minute pace. Or, no, it wasn't that fast then. Maybe it was a 9-minute pace. Yeah, 9-minute pace. And then I would, run 6 miles at that pace, no matter what. And then the next time I'd bump it up 7 miles, 8 miles, up until where I was like running a half marathon on a treadmill. And I was like, okay, now I'm just going to do the real thing or whatever. And I ran that half marathon, joined the Army. And in the Army, being good at running would help you progress in your career. I found out being a fitness stud can get you pretty far. And specifically, like you could be able to do a whole bunch of push-ups. But the PT test always ended with a 2-mile run. And you were on display for everyone in the chain of command. And so it was like, my push-ups were never that great, but I would always try to win or like blow the 2-mile run out of the water. And I remember I ran like, my fastest one wasn't that fast, but for me, thinking about now, it was like 11:46 for a 2-mile. So it was under a 6-minute pace for 2 miles. And yeah, sure enough, my PT test was never even that great. Like a 300 would be a maximum. So you get 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 in the run. And I would get like a 250 because I would bomb the sit-ups and the push-ups, and I would just focus all on running all the time. And every single time, like my first sergeant, the commander, they would be like, man, Hamilton, he's that PT stud. He would always talk about me. And I'm like, dude, I'm not that great in shape. I'm just gonna run. Yeah. So that kept the entire time I was in the Army, I always kept up with running for that reason. No matter really what happened, what type of life cycle I was in, whether it be good, bad, or just cruising along, neither good or bad, I always had running in a sense from that point on. I could always go and bust out a marathon on any given, if you're like, hey, next month you got a marathon, I could do it. I mean, it would be like 4.5, 5 hours, but I could go run a marathon. It always just stuck around, man. It stuck around, like it was just always there. And I think I held on to it because it was always a good way to measure where I was at. You know what I mean? Like I'd go out and run the same route I ran to, 6 months ago, and I'm dying, and I'm 2 minutes slower than I was. I'm like, all right, you know where you're at, man. And so keeping running in my life was just always really a good way to measure, just where I was and where my priorities were, because running was a priority in my life. So if I wasn't running a lot, it'd always give me, chances to take a step back and be like, what are we doing? Well, what are we doing where we're taking our time away from being able to invest in this thing that we care about? And a lot of times, it'd be Netflix, or it'd be doom scrolling, or something not really conducive to a healthy lifestyle like running is. And yeah, man. So over the years, it just always stuck around. And getting out of the Army, I had entered into a special forces program to become a Green Beret 2 years prior to getting out of the Army. And while I was in that program, I started picking up an old drinking habit that I had from like basically the first time I ever drank when I was 13. Because there wasn't a lot of work. It was just a lot of training. You would train real hard for 2 weeks, and then you'd be chilling for like, I don't know, 3 weeks doing classroom stuff, like whatever. Most people worked out. A lot of us drank. And so like that just like skyrocketed, man. We were doing good things career-wise. We were at the tip of the spear as the Army's concerned. Yeah, we were a little bit alcoholic, but we were also it was okay, you know what I mean? Literally like half the class drank. And so I progressed through that pipeline, going to airborne school and continuing to like train, but obviously not getting the most out of myself as I could. Looking back now, I'm like, man, I really could have shined had I like trained like I do now. But I had the drinking, and it was just like an anchor, man, weighing me down. And so fast forward like a year into this pipeline, now I have moved my wife, who's pregnant, from Clarksville, Tennessee, where we were stationed, to Fort Bragg, to the Special Warfare Center there. And so now we've done this big family change, and I'm in this schoolhouse, and I'm drinking, and then we got to go to this it's like this 40-day field operation where you ain't drinking, you ain't eating nothing other than MREs and whatever they say to eat, and we're leaving for it. And I'm more nervous about not drinking than I am anything else, man. And I'm leaving my pregnant. She hadn't had Gabriel yet. I'm leaving my pregnant wife back at home. I'm going out to the field, and I'm more concerned about drinking than I am about leaving her there. And we go out there, man, 2 weeks in, and it's funny. Everyone's like, man, you're really slimming down. Like, we're all losing weight, but you're really slimming down. And I was like, man, it's because I'm not drinking. Like, I drank every day. I drank a 12-pack of Bud Light easy every day. And so that was just those calories right there, 12 beers gone. And not on the weekends, I would drink a lot more than that. So, and then I was just eating like 3 MREs a day about. We would eat at the dining facility too, but so 4,000 calories a day. And it was real structured. So I was leaning out, and I was like turned into this like chiseled soldier that I probably should have been to be there anyway. And I remember we were doing this operation. We were out. We sent dudes to go fill our canteens with swamp water, and then we were going to drop iodine tablets into it, and that's what we were hydrated off of. And so they were out filling the canteens. It's raining, and I'm just sitting there. And I bought a Jeep Wrangler right before I went to this field operation. And I was thinking about the Jeep Wrangler, and I was thinking about drinking a beer, driving around in my Jeep Wrangler with the top off. And I got up and I went and I quit. And I quit like everything right then and there. All this year that I'd spent in this pipeline, the years I spent training to get there, I just quit right then and there. And my wife was even like blown away. My dad was blown. Everyone was blown away. And I said I did it for my family because my wife was pregnant at home. But I did it because really my mindset was just weakened by how the lack of control I had over something in my life, I think is what it was. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be alcohol, but it was just lack of control, and I was just weak, man. And yeah, so I wanted to go home and do that. And I quit, and I ended up getting a job working in like a tool shed for a big mechanic shop. That was it was a contractor with the military. So I got right in, making like $12 an hour, handing out tools to mechanics, because that's what I originally was a mechanic in the Army. So I had a little knowledge. So I had none of that military structure anymore, and any of that fitness. I wasn't running anymore, so I was just drinking. And I remember being like, man, this is bad. This is bad. I'm going downhill fast. And I was like, I need something. What's like the military? But not. And because I was like, I can't go back in. I just tapped out. I wanted to go back in. That's what this is process I'm going through. I'm like looking at my uniform on the bed and stuff. And I was like, police, they're kind of like military, you know what I mean? And then so I went and asked my wife, and she's like, yes, thank God you want to do something, that you can set some higher sights to and go for. And then, so yeah, I started calling around. I got a job where we were hoping to move to, because she was on her way out of the military as well. And I got a job. I didn't know it, but at the time, it was in the county with the highest murder rate in the entire state, DeKalb County. It's known in law enforcement across just everywhere, man, because Atlanta's such a...
The reason that they had job openings.
Yeah, they took me immediately. They didn't ask questions. I didn't even fill out a job application for them.
They said, this dude is breathing and he's got a driver's license. You are hired.
They said, military? Okay, yeah. Do you want to work here? And I was like, yeah. Because I called a few other, and they asked about tattoos. I told them, they're like, yeah, no, or it could be hard. DeKalb County, I called them before I filled out the application online. I called them. They were like, you did military? Yep. Okay, when can you take a PT test? And I'm living in North Carolina. This is in Georgia. And I was like, when's your next one? And they were like, couple months, you know what I mean? So there we were. I went and took the PT test. So from making the phone call to starting the police academy was less than 6 months. And that's going through the entire hiring process, man. So it was like, boom, I'm back in the police. I'm back into something. And then again, I can use my running, and the same thing. I was shining in the police academy because pretty soon my running was getting back up to being a priority again. I was still drinking, but at some point in the police academy, my instructor was like, look, I know you're drinking every night. You need to stop. Straight up. It's gonna ruin your chances here. And so I quit right then and there. And I finished the police academy, and there was 4 of us. It was the smallest police academy, or the second smallest police academy in the history of the department. And it had been around since the 50s, you know what I mean? And so the 4 of us got real close, but 2 of us got sent to North Precinct, 2 got sent to South Precinct. South Precinct was like known as the worst of the worst. It's all bad, DeKalb. Well, it's not. There's some really beautiful parts of DeKalb County, but there's a lot of hood, and there's a lot of rundown areas that are very dangerous. And so 2 of us go one way, 2 of us go the other way. And a year after we graduate, our buddy Edgar Flores, got shot and killed down at South Precinct. December 13th, 2018. He was shot and killed. He was pursuing a subject with felony warrants, and the guy turned, fired a bunch of shots at him, and hit Edgar 3 times. And it was one of those things that, like, we're trained, and we trained a lot. And if I tried to go do that, you know what I mean? It would be hard for me to mimic that. That was like what they refer to as perp luck, you know? Yeah, it killed Edgar right then and there, man. And that was a year after we graduated. And my already drinking problem just skyrocketed, dude. I did Edgar's eulogy, and it was broadcasted over like every news channel around here. It was broadcasted in Mexico, where he's from, and my name got known across the department because of that. I was also a really good police officer. I was always arresting people. I went on one Sunday and arrested 5 people by myself. I was like, I set my sights high, man. So I was just, and I knew the more people you pulled over, the more arrests you made, the better chance you would have to succeed. And then, so that on top of the fact that I gave this eulogy, the entire police department was there. My name got known, and a spot for homicide detective became open. And I put in for it, man. And I went and interviewed and did good, and I got the spot. And my drinking's still pretty bad, and I have a real bad back from stuff in the military, so I'm like messing around with my muscle relaxers too, dude. And long story short, I get a DUI, not on duty. I strike a pedestrian with my vehicle. I'm subsequently arrested for DUI, and I get put on like administrative leave from the police department, and they're basically just pending termination. But they give you time. It's really awesome, man. They give you time to go basically get your affairs in order while they decide what they're going to do with you. And yeah, so I went to rehab through the VA and started tackling all that, getting my mind right. And I had this treadmill that I bought off Craigslist years before. I can't remember the name of it, but it had no screen. Well, it had a screen, but it was just a strip, and it had like 1 through 10, and those were the speeds. And I knew that, like, I think it was 7 miles per hour was an 8-minute pace or something. And so I had a card written down with the paces and stuff. And so I started trying to run on this thing. And at this point in time, I was like 230 pounds. And so I was like significantly overweight for my size. And yeah, so I started running on this treadmill, man. And my wife was like, "Yeah, let's get a better treadmill." So we get a better treadmill, and then I end up running a marathon on it. And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of weird that I'm able to run a marathon on a treadmill and it doesn't really faze me too much mentally or physically. And then so I posted that on East Coast Trail and Ultra Facebook page, and they all started blasting with the Treadmill 48-hour challenge. And I was like, I'm not crazy at all. What is this? So I started learning about all this deep diving in. I already knew about ultra running, but deep diving, I didn't have a clue. And now I'm like drinking from the fire hose of information, man. And I ended up signing up for the 100-miler on the treadmill. I was a year out. I trained for it, man. I did it. I've ran 100-mile distance now, I don't know, probably 10 times or more. And to this day, that was the hardest 100-mile distance I've ever done. It was on a treadmill. But yeah, so I quit drinking. I haven't drank since. It's been over 5 years, and I've been running ever since. There's been hiccups here and there, injuries or big life stress where you need to take a break from running, but it's been on the front burner for quite a long time, man. So I've been able to gain quite a bit of experience in it. And, now I coach people. I have a handful of clients. I work full time, so I only have a handful of clients, but I love coaching, and I love running. And yeah, it keeps me grounded in a lot of ways. And like I said, it's always that way of measuring where I'm at. And it's not always like a super negative thing. Like if I go and do a segment and I'm out of shape, sometimes it's like, all right, dude, let's go. You know what I mean? It's not like beat myself up. It's like, let's see how quick we can get back to where we were or something. Mm-hmm. And yeah, man. So 20 minutes and 14 seconds. That's how long it took me to answer that question.
So a couple of questions. How old were you when you had joined the military and done that piece?
Yep, 21 years old.
Okay, so you joined when you were 21.
Yep.
Then how long did you serve total?
5 years. 5 years, yep.
Then you left, joined the police department.
Yep.
And then the police department piece, I would imagine that was probably really hard at that time because you were already, you lost someone that you were, partners with, trained with, and you go on this downward spiral of drinking. And did I hear you right when you said that you struck a pedestrian, I assume with your car?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Were they okay?
Yeah, no, thank God they were not severely injured. But it came with I was pending that criminal court case for 5 years. When I went to court for it a year and a half ago, I just got off probation for it months ago. And civil lawsuit. We got a letter said we were being sued civilly. And so we got a lawyer, and they're like, yeah, they can take everything. You know what I mean? They can take everything you have and what you don't have. And so it was like, I contemplated suicide at that point in my life, and to a very dangerous point, man. Just because it was like, where do we go? Where do we go from here, man? Like, what do I do now? And something was like, just run, you know what I mean? But like in a different way, just go run, but with purpose. Just for now, you don't have to do nothing else. And my wife was like, well, I'll better that. You really don't have to do nothing. I'll go to work. She had a master's degree in logistics, and she did 10 years in the military, 2 combat tours Afghanistan. So she had a lot to give to society or to an employer. We were just doing, hey, you're the pregnant wife. She was pregnant again with our second son. I'm going to go do the classic American, dad's going to work. You're going to be at home. And so she was like, look, stay home. Just keep this little running thing. Because she was like, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I want to be a professional ultramarathon runner. And I even laughed when I said it. And she was like, fine, just focus on that. And it's comical now that I think about it. But yeah, she was like, just focus on that. I'll go to work. And she did. She went to work and just let me focus on running and being a stay-at-home dad. And annoyingly to her, I was the best stay-at-home dad ever. I loved it. It wasn't never stressful. She'd come home and I'd be like, hey, like just super happy. Like we went here, here, and here. Like I built carts to take them out on the trail and run with them. And that's where the whole Ultra Dad name came from. It's because it was like, if I want to do this ultra thing, dude, I got to bring them along. You know what I mean? So I took them to Mid-State the year I spectated. Took them to Mid-State out there. And so they grew up going out there. And yeah, it did. So yeah, that all went down. That was all crazy. It was rough, but it ended up turning into something good.
The first time you came out to Mid-State, that's the first year I did it. And
okay.
You had your little kids, and my wife goes, those are the cutest little boys, like, because they had that little curly hair. And
yeah, blonde, like almost white hair. Yeah.
Yep. That's the first time.
And they were super tan. And
yeah,
so they looked odd. I remember being like,
from all those trail runs in the cart.
yeah.
So did your wife know that you were contemplating suicide?
No, and I don't know that I really did until after I went through the whole rehab process through the VA and really had to sit down with professionals and dig deep into my problems. And because I never sat down with a gun, but once we talked about where my mind was at during that time of my life, it was like, yeah, man, that was an option for you at that point in time. And again, looking back at that, man, like knowing all the people that I knew killed themselves, unfortunately, man, being in the military and being in law enforcement, a lot of officers and soldiers kill themselves, dude. And so you get to the point to where, I don't know, not everybody, maybe I shouldn't even voice this, but I am, because that's who I am. You get not annoyed, but you're like, damn you, dude. Like, you selfish person. How could you do that to your wife, to your kids, to us, to the medic who has to show up and look at your head exploded, to whoever found you who now has PTSD for life. That's how I felt about suicide. And then, boom, now it's an option for me. Just goes to show you what mental health illness can do, man.
Yeah, you always, I think at some point everyone has had a little glimpse in the back of their head of like, how could you do that to your family? But the truth is, like, they're not in the right state of mind to even think.
They're not themselves. 100%.
No, not at all.
They're not there.
That thought didn't even really cross their head or their minds because they're not who they normally are.
No.
Something has happened. And so that's unfortunate. But I'm glad that, obviously you turned everything around. And your wife sounds pretty amazing to give you the opportunity to, like, okay, hit the reset button. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do, Ultra Dad? Like, what are we doing here? So that's kind of cool. And it looks like you found your way, because like now you're a chef. Is that what you?
Chef is definitely, some people call me a chef. and it's like at work, and it's comical to me because I am not a trained culinary expert in any sense. I've cooked when I was 19. I was a fry cook at a seafood place, and then I did all that other life, and then I got a job as a cook. My wife and I got separated about 2 years ago, and you were going to ask if I had any advice for people about running, and I will hit on this. But yeah, so we got separated, and I was like, well, I get disability because I'm a disabled veteran, and I was like, but I got to pay for an apartment, I got to do all this, I got to get a job, but I don't need like that good of a job because I need flexible schedule to be able to pick up my kids and do this, that, and the other. And so I was like, well, let me just go. What it was is my friend was like, hey, he helped me move into this apartment. He's like, let's go get a brat. And we went to this place to get a brat, and he asked them if they were hiring for me. And it was one of those what the heck situations. And then I ended up working there, like base pay as a cook. And then like, the owner gets to know me, and he's like, wait, what? What did you used to do? And like, I just had my work ethic there, and they're used to like teeny boppers, work ethic.
Yeah.
And then so he was like, all right, man, we're going to make you a manager and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, man, he's taken really good care of me and my family. Yeah, it's been there 2 years now, and I love it. So I run his kitchen for him. He has managers that run the front of the house, and then he has me, and I run the back.
Is that in Helen, Georgia? Is that where
Yep.
you work? Cool.
Yep, the Huff Brew House.
My wife wants to go down there, so if we're down there, I want to come in there and see you.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yep.
I think I've been to a couple of different spots in Georgia, but I remember I went to, is it Blairsville? Is where I think I went there and stayed for Georgia Death Race when I ran it.
Yep. Well, yeah. So, yeah, because it starts over here. Yep. It starts in Blairsville, so that would make sense.
And you're close to that?
I'm in Blairsville.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Georgia Death Race runs from Vogel State Park to Amicalola Falls, and Vogel State Park is in the city of Blairsville, and I live probably 25 minutes from Vogel.
I think I ran a modified version of the race, though. So just FYI.
Was it recent?
I did it COVID year, and we didn't run it till like, I can't remember, October or November. Like it was late.
Yep. I remember that year. Yeah, everyone calls it the COVID one. Yeah.
So I have a question before we get like too far into your running now that we know your story, and thank you for sharing that. I know it's probably hard to talk about some of that stuff, but you're very open, and I truly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I know every now and then Ultra Sign Up is just like, you can have a race that's really not yours, but I just want to ask, you have one race that's in 2014 and then a race in 2020. Did you really run a race in 2014? And like, how did that?
Is it the Mount Cheeha?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. So I was in the Army. It's actually really cool, man. So I was in the Army. So I started all that running before I joined the Army. And I started being like, well, I kind of like not done at the half marathon. I'm probably going to feel that way at the marathon. I was like, what's after that? You know what I mean? So back in 2010, 11, I started looking into distances further than a marathon, and that's ultra marathon. And yes, ultra marathon's been around for a long, long time. There's like the Old Dominion, Western states, but really the public knowing about it hasn't been around. And 2010, 11 was when it was really starting to pick up. That's when like Dean Karnazes' books were coming out, Barefoot Running, that Born to Run book came out.
Baby, Born to Run.
And so that's when it started like, and then the watches started coming out, the Garmin Forerunner 10 or 110. And yeah, it had like a 4-hour battery life.
No GPS.
Yeah, so I started getting it. I mean, even I started looking into Anton Krupicka, and I got the New Balance barefoot shoes that he was running around in, and, so I got into that ultra real quick and heavy right at that 2004, now we're in the Army. And so this is when I'm learning about, Krupicka and all that, 2013, 14. And yeah, we signed up for a 50K, me and one of my Army buddies, and we didn't know anything about ultra running. I showed up, just carried a bottle in my hand the whole time. Yeah, didn't knew nothing about nutrition. We didn't know how much to drink or when or what. And yeah, we just ran off. I tell everyone, piss and vinegar. Just two little soldiers, like, we're gonna get to this thing. And it wasn't a super easy, 50K. And yeah, we made it to the end. But I remember walking down a street, like 100. It was like a couple hundred yards down the street to the finish. And I was like, my calves. First time I ever experienced it. My calves were locking up. Involuntary muscular incapacitation. I couldn't walk anymore. And I was like, I can see the finish. What is this? You know what I mean? And yeah, I wasn't trained for it. We were just soldiers. We were like, we could do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I really did. I ran that, and then I didn't run another one until 2020. And I thought about ultra running and stuff, but I think the only thing I officially ran in between them at that time frame was the Silver Comet half marathon, and that was in like 2018, 2019, and I was supposed to run the full, but I missed some turn, and I was cruising. I was going to run an 8-minute pace for an entire marathon. That was my goal, and I was clicking away fine, and I start hearing cowbells, and I see the finish, and I was like, what? And they put this medal around me, and I was like, I'm running the marathon. They're like, you missed the turn 2 miles ago. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm done. Yeah. I'm not running back. Now I would be like, all right, how far? Okay, cool. And I would run back and finish the full.
And then just wear the half marathon medal. Yeah. Finish the marathon.
As I finished
it, went back out.
I did both. Yeah, so I did run that, but yeah, nothing else until I picked it back up.
I mean, that's not a bad 50K time. I mean, 6.5 hours to be your first one and Mount Chiaha 50K.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was just curious because I was like, that's kind of odd to have one ultra and then nothing for 6 years. You know, like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it looks like in 2020 is when you really the light switch flipped and you were like, okay.
Yeah. So, and I'll bring that back.
Ultra Dad. Did you start Ultra Dad at that time in 2020?
I'm always transparent with everything, so I'll just tell you where Ultra Dad came from. So I was trying to get Instagram famous, and I was Googling, and they were like, number one, have a catchy handle. And they're like, if you're into something, make it about that. And if it's something that's new, use that thing in your name, and when it becomes popular, you'll be the only spot. And I was like, well, I'm a dad. I run around with my kids. That's catchy. You know what I mean? People could like to follow that. And, you know, like I was a stay-at-home dad. That's not typical. And I'm running around with them, taking my kids everywhere. That wasn't typical. So I was like, that could be catchy. And I was like, Ultra Dad. All right. That's it. Ultra Dad. And then, yeah, so I chose that. That was years ago.
I mean, if Liver King can do it,
right?
Ultra Dad could do it, right?
Ultra Dad. And then so I went hot and heavy, like trying to, you know, I just Googled how to, you know, what to do to get more followers and stuff. And then, dude, it was just way too much work. And I think I gave it, my wife was like, you got to give it a month. You got to really try to get followers for a month and, you know, get your page out there. And then it was like, I think I got like 60 followers in a month, and they were like dropping by the day. You know what I mean? And so I just gave up on that. And that's where the name Ultra Dad came from. But then I did really, when I first linked up with Salty Britches, that was in like 2020-ish. She really honed in on the Ultra Dad thing, Amy. And then I went to Mid-State, and someone, what was his name? Someone walked up to me and were like, hey man, are you Ultra Dad? And that was the first time anyone ever referred to me as Ultra Dad or asked me, and I was like, yeah, I guess I am. And he's like, hey, I'm one of your followers. I had like 400 followers, so I wasn't expecting like to meet somebody in the public that knew me on Instagram. And yeah, so that was funny. And then I was like, all right, yeah, let's hone in on the whole Ultra Dad thing, man. And then it came to where I was like, you know, what is being an Ultra Dad to me? An Ultra Dad to me is, you know, getting my runs done outside of family time, or minimizing the amount of family time I take for my run endeavors. Especially when I was a stay-at-home dad. It was like, no, not going to happen. my wife never really even saw me run. I got really friendly with the headlamp, when I did end up going back to work, started running in the night. So like, and I would be like, I don't want to do this, man, but it's something an ultra dad would do. And I'm not like the ultra dad. It's just like anybody can be an ultra dad. You know what I mean? You can be an ultra dad in any aspect of your life. And it just became part of it, dude. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be like a moniker, but like something I'm going to look up to being, a title that I'm going to look up to fulfilling. You know what I mean? And it was fun. And so, yeah, so Ultra Dad became a thing. And sometimes I bring him out. Like my wife was like, during my 200-mile race, I get back to Vogel State Park. So it's 45-mile out and back. You run out 20 some odd miles, run back 45 miles total, 12,000 feet of vert and sub-freezing temperatures. And I get there and they're not there. And I was like, where are you guys at? She's like, oh my God, we mismanaged the time. We didn't expect you for another hour and a half. And I'm like, well, that's too much time. I got to get back out there. And so I texted in the group chat, well, it's time to do Ultra Dad shit. Like, I'm going to go raid. They had vending machines. I'm going to go raid the vending machine. That's the first thing I thought. I'm going to do whatever I got to do. That was dramatic because there was an aid station on Vogel. And I could just go there and pack up on some Debbie cakes and stuff. And so, you know what I mean? So I bring out Ultra Dad like that. You know how David Goggins kind of talks about, when he goes into Goggins mode and he's all, he's dialed in when he's Goggins. He starts cussing people out. You don't know me, son. People at the aid stations are like, who's he talking to?
So when you go Ultra Dad, you're like folding diapers, eating Debbie cakes.
It's completely opposite of David Goggins. It's like I turn into this sweet little man running down the trail laughing.
Where's my stroller?
Where's my babies at? Exactly.
As we look at your ultra sign up, it looks like you're close to like 30 races total, which is pretty good considering you started in 20. We'll just skip the 2014 anomaly there, but basically 2020 on, you're over, you're close to 30 races.
That's about when I started, was 2020. So,
and I mean, you ran some pretty hard races. I mean, you obviously just finished a really hard race. As you go through here, I see the very first, you did 100K, and then you did, in 2020, you already talked about it, but you did a 48-hour treadmill run. Now, was that 48 hours, it says 100-miler, but did you run 100 miles or did you run more?
So the way that it's on Ultra Sign Up is called the Treadmill 48-hour, or the 48-hour Treadmill Challenge or whatever. And that's even what the buckle says. No, and so you can sign up for two different things. You can sign up to run the 100-miler, or you can sign up to run the 48-hour max distance challenge. And there are guys who do, you know what I mean, who run like 160 miles, you know what I mean? Because you used to be able to win a Proform 5000 treadmill.
Oh, wow.
And I had that treadmill, so I knew exactly what that was. I mean, I really just purchased. That was the one my wife was like, let's get you a better one. I got the Proform 5000. And I was like, that's not cheap, dude. And so people would sign up for this, and really, there'd be a couple of them that'd be going balls out, trying to win. Yeah. So it had a really small competitive factor to it for that reason. But I signed up for just the 100-mile distance. And I wanted to. So the cool thing about the Treadmill 100 is, you sign up online, they send you the list of rules, and you get to pick any day in December to do it. And remember, my buddy's death anniversary was December 13th. So I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to do it on that. When the clock strikes midnight and it's the 13th, I'm going to take off running. And that's what I did. And that's the purpose for that. I'm going to run 100 miles in under a day. That was my plan for him, and just to honor him and stuff. And I did it in 23 hours and like 25 minutes or something like that. Yeah, barely, dude. It was rough. It was rough. I completely underestimated how hard it was. I didn't know anything about pacing myself. I ran like 40 straight miles, and then I started run walking because I had to. And yeah, it was rough. And then I forgot about the 100K just now until you said that, because I was thinking I did that and went straight to Cruel Jewel 100, but I didn't. I did do
Bull
that
Mountain.
Bull Mountain. Yeah, that was my Bull Mountain 100K. That was my first introduction to getting out there in the trails and the real, like, going up a real mountain, something called a mountain.
How was that 100K? Like, was that a learning, humbling experience?
You see the time?
So
Dude.
yeah, I see that, and I see the treadmill time, which is the treadmill time is actually pretty good for 100 miles. And even though it's a treadmill, it's still less than a day. But between both of those, you probably learned a lot.
I did, but they were very different. The treadmill was fully to honor my friend and to knock out the 100-mile distance. That was the main focus. The 100K was my first time standing next to other dudes like, oh yeah, we're about to throw down. Like, I was still very military when I started ultra running. I was very, let's take some souls, the David Goggins mindset, where now I'm more like free spirited hippie. Let's all, whatever. Let's see how far we can go. I don't really care.
So did you take off in this 100K?
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. What a mistake.
Yeah. So this 100K, it has 10,000 feet of vertical gain in the 100K, which isn't crazy, but it's definitely not flat. And what it is what's really popular out there is the 50K. If I remember correctly, the 50K is 3 loops, and in that you get 5,000 feet of vert. And a 50K, it's pretty beast. That's pretty good. Like when you're thinking nothing, and you're thinking a really hard 50K is 10,000. So 5,000 is right in the middle. And I went out there and I ran the first 50K in 5 hours and 25 minutes. You see the finish time, 17 and a half hours. So it took me 12 hours to do the next 50K. And what I did was I knew nothing about nutrition at this point in time. I did knew some stuff about it. I knew you had to drink about a bottle of water an hour. I knew you needed some sodium. I knew you needed goose because everyone was doing it. I knew you needed calories in from doing the treadmill, the 100. So I wasn't completely dumb to it, but I just definitely was nowhere near dialed in. I was the guy who just had a bunch of stuff and would randomly eat it. And what I did was I found out bananas were easy to get down. So I drank noon tablets in my water, and I ate bananas. And so the first 50K goes by, I've eaten 10 bananas and nothing else. I can't, and now I'm so like,
Probably a lot of fiber, right?
and yeah. And I ran myself into GI distress, and then I could no longer stomach anything. And yeah. And then so I didn't know how to get out of that hole at this point in time. So it just turned into a death march. And I wasn't going to quit. That was one thing I had in me from day one, was like, I ain't quit. Like, I'll die out here. And yeah, so I had trekking poles, and they were like, the Walmart freaking 20-pound trekking poles with the plastic things on the end of it. And I'm just going.
Pretty good.
Sorry.
Pretty
No
good.
offense, guys. No offense. That's why you got such big biceps carrying them poles around. I ate the whole humble pie on that second PK of that 100K. And so that was when I was like, all right, you got to pace yourself. That was rule number one. Also, let's start figuring out what to eat. And I started diving into the literature and studying this stuff. And I was finishing up my degree in sociology, my bachelor's degree. So I was into reading scientific literature for some of the classes I did for that. And so I started reading scientific literature about ultra running and got into Jason Koop's podcast. I remember listening to his podcast when it first came out. And so I've literally listened to every episode he has. I just listened to all the podcasts, and then Jason Koop, he has the ultra running certification in conjunction with, I can never remember all the letters in the right order, but the governing authority who is over all the coaching and stuff. And so, I dove into that, and then I was like, well, I can get a master's degree with the remainder of the GI Bill I have. So I started my master's degree in sports and health science with a concentration in like individual human performance. And yeah, I only have one class left for that. And I think I'm kind of like holding on to that. Like I should just take it, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to wait. Because I feel like once that's done, now I have to do something. I mean, that's a big, it's a big task. And then now, hey, you have this master's. Now are you still cooking or what are you doing? And so I was like, I don't know. But yeah, so I just dove into all the literature, man. And I really started, and then you see the ultra sign up 2020, 2021. I ran a lot of races and did a lot of practicing, found out what worked for me. And, you know how that stuff is. It's always still ever changing. I finally settled on water, salt tabs, and spring energies. And we all know what happened with spring energies. Yeah. So I stopped taking spring because we weren't really 100% sure what was in the packets anymore. And yeah, so now it's just kind of, now it's more like, now I know scientifically what I should be hitting. So it's just about getting things inside me that aren't going to upset my gut at certain paces. Like 200 miler, I'm eating whatever. Georgia Jewel, trying to win Georgia Jewel 100, I'm eating very light foods for the most part. In the night, gets chilled out a little bit. I might eat some more solid foods, like little whatever they have at aid stations. But yeah, so the nutrition changes and stuff. But man, yeah, after that 100K is when I really started. All right, let me figure out how to get better at this. Yeah, that was the start of it, man.
So, how did the chafing game go for your first 100K?
So afterwards, it was bad. You get in the shower, you find out you're chafing.
Yeah.
But during the race, so when my stomach goes south to that, it's gotten there a few more times because of stupidity. But when it's at that level, I don't feel nothing else, man. My foot could be broken. And I just am so consumed with how my stomach feels that I just don't really care. So I wasn't really paying attention to chafing, but I remember that 100K, dude. Oh my goodness. I remember, I couldn't get up. We had a Ring doorbell, so there was the whole funny video of me trying to get in the house and then getting in the shower. It was like, boom. Now I know where I'm chafing. And it's like all the bad spots, and it's bad. So yeah, I chafed really bad, but during the race, it was not a problem because it 100% focused on my gut the whole time. Yeah. I ran the second half with nothing. Well, basically, I had a Ziploc of pretzels. So I ran the second 50K with a Ziploc of pretzels, and that was about it.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I remember at Mid-State, the year that I ran it with you, the year that you won, during the day, starting early, your stomach was messed up. We were on those climbs, and you're just bent over, just
puking,
throwing up everything. And I'm like, man, I don't think Justin's going to make it too long.
So do you smack yourself when you're puking too?
No.
Because Matt's the only person I've ever met, but
it works.
I didn't know if you would smack yourself when you puke.
Where, like on your gut?
No, smack your face.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
In the face.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see that as like a primal instinct. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh crap! Your body's like, we're done with this. Your face is getting
now
smacked.
Let's stop it.
Yep.
So no, I love puking. So that's the thing with me, man. I love puking, and like, so if I got to puke now during mid-state, still in mid-state, I wasn't as dialed in with myself as I am now. Of course, it was years ago, but at mid-state, I was really worried the whole time because it's like, in my mind, once you start puking like that, you're done. It's only a matter of time. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm done. But I was so invested in winning mid-state. I'd talked so much smack online and with so many people. And I was like, I cannot stop. So it was literally like, well, they're going to wake me up or I'm going to wake up in a hospital or something. And I'm just not going to stop. And eventually puking everything up and stopping consuming anything just for a little bit was what worked. And so that mid-state was my first real introduction into, okay, you're not done. If you're in extreme GI distress with heat exhaustion, you're bad off, but you can recover. You can, especially if you have aid stations, you can recover somewhere you can sit. It's not a last man standing. You know what I mean? And so yeah. But mid-state, that was rough, man. It was about 4 hours of no puking, and I was downing Tailwind. I was drinking way too much Tailwind. I was carrying it around with me, and so I was drinking it just like all the time. It was hot as heck.
Yep.
and maybe a nervous habit. And so I remember Becca saying, "You're taking a lot of tailwind. Like, why do you need a new soft laps already? You're like 2 laps in." And then I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And my buddy Watts was cooking up all types of food on the grill. So he'd come up and like hand me a piece of a quarter hamburger or hot dog or some chicken and bacon. And so I was just like dumpster in my stomach. I didn't know really what I was putting too much stuff in. And I remember when it started, I was feeling really good mentally, and I guess I was pumped up because all the food that was in my stomach, maybe I felt good, wholesome. And a loop started, and I screamed, "Let's effing go." I didn't say effing, I screamed the F word. "Let's effing go." Yeah! And as soon as I was like, "Yeah," I stopped and I was like, "Uh-oh." And then, yeah, that's when the puking started. And then it didn't stop until around hour 15. Yep. And then it stopped and I was good. And I was like,
It was
wow.
like in the night, because all day, like, we'd be running and you're just like bent over, just throwing up. I'm like, man, I don't know how long Justin's going to make this. And then once the night came, it was completely different for you. Like,
Yeah, the
you were
temps
just
up. Yep.
climbing those hills. I'm like, well, Justin made it all day, but now he's not throwing up. So we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stick around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
Yep.
early in the day, I'm like, man, Justin is letting it go early. And I'm the one usually throwing up in these races. And I
Yeah.
hadn't thrown up. I'm like, I'm not throwing up, and Justin's letting everything go. This
Oh,
isn't
yeah, I
good.
did.
So
Yeah, I was real nervous. I remember Luke Baltzweiler. I was on one of the climbs and I had just puked and I had puke hanging from my chin. And he's like, "Man, Justin," he's like, "I was really hoping you'd do better. I wanted to go the distance with you." And I was like, I just laughed and I was like, "Yeah, Luke, me too, buddy." And it's funny because I ended up beating him. But I'd never forget that, him saying that. And I was
I
like,
mean, because
yeah,
you
man.
did you look rough during the day.
I was
Like,
pale.
yep.
Dude, that's just will and grit.
Like he would get
That's
back to
all 100%.
you'd get back to like your little tent over there, and you just lay down. And I'm like, Justin is like, like hanging on, but he is struggling.
Early. Like he's
Early.
doing day 2 daytime
Yeah.
slumping
Yeah.
early. Everyone else is like sitting on their coolers, like talking and like, "Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, last year, Chad Wright." And I'm over here like, yeah,
Yeah. That's about how it looked.
Well, let's.
good stuff.
I mean, so you win that one, obviously. So that's the race we're talking about. You willed your way through that, which
Yeah.
is pure grit. And sometimes social media is the worst and the best at the same time because you put yourself out there to say you're going to do something.
Yeah, man. It was a factor in my mind. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Right.
I hate to.
You
It
wouldn't
makes me
believe
feel.
how many reports and stuff that you read where people have said that they put out on Facebook that they were going to do this on a run or an ultra, and then they want to drop halfway. And then in their interview, the only reason they didn't drop was because they said in social media they were going to do it. So
Yep.
sometimes it holds you accountable.
I've done that some. Like, I mean, I don't put a lot of my stuff out there, like what I'm running and not running, because of that. I'm like, if I talk a big game and then I get out there and fall apart, I'm like, yeah, I look bad. But
Yeah.
when
Yep.
I do that and I do put it out there, and then I get in a bad spot during the race, I'm like, okay, well, now I've already said this. Everybody knows what my expectation is. So now I've got to, even if I hang on for 2 more hours, I've got to hang on for 2 more hours because I've already claimed this. So
Yep.
it is a good and a bad thing,
Dude, I used it in training a lot in the early
Mhm.
times. I was really, really big on. I mean, I am now. I would post all my workouts, what I was planning to do early in the
Mhm.
day. I'd say, "Hey, I got a 4-hour, 12% incline treadmill session tonight after work." And I would be like, "Oh, man," I'd get off work. I'd be like, "I don't want to do this. I don't need to do this, but I said I was going to do this." And there's going to be a couple people who check. And there was someone mentioned it to me the next day. They said, "Dude, I thought for sure he ain't gonna do that workout." And then I woke up and sure enough, he had done it. And I was like, "Thank God I did it." What?
I remember some of the posts you were making about, I think, the sauna suits and and all this stuff, and you're like, I'm decked out in this. And then I said something to you at mid-state. I'm like, yeah, dude, I saw you're doing all these. He goes, I was doing that for just a couple people. Like I was doing
I did that one time.
yeah,
I
I
did
was
it
doing
once.
that
Yeah.
just to intimidate one person. And I'm like, it might have worked because I remembered it. Like it was something that
Yep.
stuck in my head when you did it.
Yeah, I didn't heat train at all for mid-state. That was a big mistake. That had a lot to do with the heat exhaustion I was going through. But I did one time. I put on that big old my mop suit from the Army. I even have an old gas mask, and I went running through the neighborhood with like a rucksack on. Ah, dude. My point. What I wanted to do was go see what it felt like to like reach that point of heat to where it was like, all right, something bad's about to happen, or I need to stop, or you know what I mean? If I don't stop, I'm gonna pass out. I wanted to know what that felt like, and so I ran through the neighborhood, and I remember I was running up the hill, and I was like, I started like getting real like confused, and like my vision started getting real tunneled. And I was like, yeah, this is it. And I just took everything off right in the middle of the road, like the mask, all the clothes, and I carried it all up. And I just imagine someone like watching me just strip it off, stop and strip it all off. Yeah, and that was the only thing I did heat training wise for mid-state. And yeah, I was like, well, I'm posting this because this is
Oh,
going to make
yeah.
it look like I'm some heat training freak. Yeah, getting their heads. Yeah, and then I puke for the first 10 hours. Yeah. Yeah, this guy's.
That just made you even more badass.
It makes the story better.
Yeah.
So you've got a long list of races on here, obviously, and you've won several of them: Tennessee Mile, Mid-State Mile. You podium Georgia Jewel. You totaled your van at Georgia Jewel.
Heck yeah.
You finished fourth at the Conquer, and then you just won Fierce Dragon. So since the last 2 years, you've been top 10. Easy to say, top 10 in most of the races you've done. What do you think has resulted in your success?
Yeah, man. So more than anything else, it's the experience. It was those early years and all the actual knowledge that I gained through my degree or just coaching people and mistakes. Though I've only been running since 2020, dude, when I think about it, it feels like it's been forever. Like the the life cycles I've gone through of things my kids have done, broken arms, whatever, to separations, back together. A lot of that running, I had a lot of focus on my running and a lot of focus on being a good stay-at-home dad, but I didn't have a lot of focus on being a good husband. My wife was a big part and has been a big part of my running. She's always been there to crew, but I didn't give her and I as much focus as it needed. Us, husband, wife, the people who met and started all this, and it died out, man, straight up. And I'm the man of the relationship right now. I say it's my fault, and we got separated, and it took me a week without my kids because we did 2 weeks on or a week on, week off, and 1 week without my kids, and I was like, you haven't done nearly enough to make this marriage blossom. You've been an okay dad. You've been a present dad. You've been there, but you haven't been a great husband. So therefore, you haven't been the best dad ever. You know what I mean? Because they need to see you be the best husband, and that's part of being a father. And yeah, I learned all that, man. And I came back. Fortunately, I still got all that experience, and I got my wife too. But yeah, that would be my big piece of advice for up and coming ultra runners, man. Is this bug bites us, and it bites us hard. And if we have full-time jobs and we're ultra runners
Mm-hmm.
and we're husbands and we're dads, that's a lot of things. That's a lot of big things. So I would just make sure just to keep that in mind, man, that you balance it and that you keep the priorities, the ones that the things that matter the most up front. Ultra running is an amazing thing. Running in general, doing anything that you can invest in yourself and watch it grow is amazing. Doesn't have to be running. But if we focus too much on that, we can make it a bad thing. And I did. And that's what I would never want to see anybody do. And that's one of the biggest things that I coach. Hey, first thing I ask, what do you do for a living? How much do you run? Are you married? Oh, you are? What's your wife's relationship with your running? Does she hate it? Does she love it? Does she don't care? Because we want them to either not care or love it. My wife doesn't care. Outside of race weeks, she don't care about my running. She knows it's a thing. It's part of our life. She sees my stuff around, but she don't really care, but she don't hate it. Race days come, she gets hyped up. You know what I mean? She's ultra mom or whatever she's got to be.
I hope she's got that Instagram handle. If not, you need to make her one.
Yeah, she's off Instagram now. She's off. Yeah, she's she's being the stronger one of us on that one, pulling the plug, trying to better her mental health and strengthen her brain.
Yeah, I can't say much there. I'm probably the world's worst at social media. I can't.
We'll send him something on Snapchat and he won't open it for like a month. And then he'll like, or we'll have like a team chat and like on social media. A week later, all of a sudden you get ding, 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 ding. He's replying to 1,000 different things that we haven't, talked about in a week. Yeah.
It's like no one's even thinking about it anymore.
Yeah, we have the team chats, and like I'll get on there once a week and I'll try to get caught up, and I'll just like be responding to texts or messages that are a week old.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure they're like, the hell is he even
where did this come from?
Now?
Like, you're trying to go back and like put all of it together. Like, what is this? Where does this go? So,
if you know me, like Monday through Friday is like wide open. I'm this guy that is going to send you a text message at 6 a.m. and say, "Hey, I think we can make all the T-shirts for this race."
That is true.
Hey, I figured out how I'm going to make all the bibs. We're going to make the I think we can do this. Hey, what do y'all think about putting on a 200-mile race?
Yeah, he does. He gets random wild hairs.
And then on Saturday and Sunday, I get a little downtime sometimes, and I might be in a car or something, and I start trying to catch up on some messages and Snapchat. It's all good. But yeah. I'm right there with her. I'm the same way. I make a joke all the time. I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna make my first post on Instagram.
Like, even though like on my social media I don't post a lot because I'm usually keeping up with East Coast's social media. So like most of the stuff that I'm posting is on there, and I'm replying to stuff on there, and mine's like, I might like something here and there, but most of the stuff on social media is all ECA.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably been the biggest thing for me too. Yeah. It's like we're always responding to an email or a message or an Instagram or a Facebook message. And my social media, I was just like, whatever. I don't even like, I'm always working on the podcast stuff. Like it's that.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to maintain multiple social medias when you're.
So I can see how you started the Ultra Dad, and you're like, that's too much work.
Yeah, it grew naturally. The way I think about
that's the best way.
Yeah,
that's the best.
And they last, and they're real followers. It's a community more. But so I started with like 300, just high school friends or whatever, 300 random people, and I was like, I want to get Instagram famous. I gained those 60 or whatever, and I was like, no, I don't. And then so 300, let's say 400, and then now I think I have like 25 or something, 2,500 or more. So that's 2,000 people who follow me, because they find me interesting or whatever it is, and that's freaking outstanding, man. You know what I mean? Like, to someone who really wants followers, that's comical, but to me, that's in my little life, that is freaking phenomenal, dude. And so it's a good and bad thing, but yeah, I use it hopefully for the good, man. Dude, to answer your question, you asked where my success came from. Yeah, I'd say more than anything, if I have to pinpoint, it's the experience that we gain doing this stuff, man. Learning what works for us as an individual, learning ways out of bad situations, whether it's GI distress, hot spots, getting lost, whatever, low spots. Just getting through all that and just knowing, you know what I mean, that it can get better. And I don't often quit. And I'm not this big guy that's like, don't quit, never quit. You're weak. You need to quit sometimes. Like, you're gonna ruin your feet, and now you can't go to work, and now you can't pay your bills. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you need to quit. But generally, my way out is the finish line. So it's like, I don't do a lot of death marching anymore. It's like, I'm going to hustle it up, and I'm going to deal with these problems on the go, because the only way to get out of here is to get done. So there's no other really way out on the table for us. I don't like to get dramatic and being like, I will not die out there. I have 2 sons and a wife I love. And I will personally get pretty medically disfigured out there. You know what I mean? I will show up to work and be like, hey boss, I can't walk, but this is how I'm going to do my job. But that's the type of job I have. You know what I mean? Some people, you know what I mean? And yeah, dude. And when it's funny to think about me having success in ultra running, I know it'd be silly to say that I haven't had success in my little world of ultra running. Obviously, if you're chasing golden tickets, UTMB points, I'm not a blip on anyone's radar. That's not what I want to be. But I've just completely changed my focus over the past 4 years. Like I did daydream about wearing a Hoka bib or, Ultra, whatever shoe company wanted me wearing their stuff and being a professional. But throughout the process of meeting professionals, becoming friends with them, learning what that really entails, and knowing the type of man I am and the father I want to be and the husband I want to be, it's just does not align with my life and my other goals. So it's not something I'm at all focused on anymore. Sponsorships, not focused, don't care, because I'm going to be me, and me is sometimes offensive. It's sometimes a little bit vulgar. It's Christian, which is offensive, and I'm vulgar, so that's vulgar Christian's offensive to some people. And so I don't care about sponsorships because I'm going to be me. Do I want to be good in this sport? Yeah, because I have that drive that I've had my entire life to want more out of everything. And so I have dreams, but they've been put off and they're different now than they were when I started. Yeah, I wanted to go to UTMB at some point, not to win it, but to finish top something. I don't know. And then now I don't. Now I want to hang around here and I want to do really hard races close to home. And I want to get really friendly with the Appalachian Trail, close, a couple 100 miles from me. I live 5 miles from it here. And I just want to get really good. I'm dialed in at my hobby because that's what it is right now. And when my kids don't care about me anymore and my wife's empty nesting and, whatever, then I might think about trying to go be world class and do something like some big premier FKT, one of the big ones or something, you know what I mean? But right now it's just like, it's this hobby that I want to get really good at, but very slowly. I don't train like most people would think. I get about 25,000 steps in a day when I'm running, and I run probably at most when I train for Georgia Jewel to go, I wanted to win it and break the course record. I train 10 hours a week for like 6 weeks. Outside of those 6 weeks, I naturally run about 5 hours a week. Like if I just don't train and I just go do the runs that I feel like doing, it's going to be about 5 hours a week with about 7,000 feet of vertical gain and maybe 15 miles. I just like going up mountains. So now I just do what I like to do. And I'm slowly clipping away really hard, to me, races. Fierce Dragon, I wanted to go out there. I had done Fierce Dragon in 2022, but I did it like a stage race. I got a cabin, did a loop, went home to the cabin, showered, and I did 5 days of that. And I was like, and it was Luke Walshweiler, again, who said, that's not a 200. That's a stage race. When I explained it to him, he was like, yeah, that's more like a stage race, man. And then that stuck with me. I love the guy. I'm not talking crap about him. I love him. And that stuck with me. And I was like, well, I need to go back there and I need to run that like a 200 miler, man. I need to run just start to finish, run it like it's a point to point. And so I did that. And now I have the double scar, which I've failed at setting the FKT for twice already. So that's my next one. The Conquer. I want to win that race. So I'll probably go back to that race until I win it. And the way that works, if it takes me 10 times, then I'm going to have 10 years of experience at the Conquer. You know what I mean? So eventually, inevitably, it's going to happen.
Did you do it in 2025?
Nope.
I didn't. No, I did it the first year, and then they did it again that same year in December. And my wife was like, no, straight up. She was like, we can't handle, because the Conquer's a big deal. That's 10 grand. You're going to go race some pros. That's no 10 hours a week training
Justin. That's real deal. And so she knows that. And she's like, I can't do that twice in one calendar year. And I was like, fair enough. You know what I mean? And so, but I'm going to, yeah, so that's the Double Scar and the Conquer are my next two. And after that, something else will come up on the radar.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're going to do mid-state this year?
No, man. No, I won't go back to mid-state and run it. I won't say again, just because never say never. But I have a very special relationship with that race, man. I'm not afraid to say it, that I really don't want to go back there and lose. I went there and spectated. I saw it, and I said, I can win this race. I went and trained for it, and I put it all over social media. Some people caught wind, and we bantered back and forth. All fun. And I went there, and I won that race. And I can see how I can get caught up and going back every year and trying to win that race. And that's not the cycle I want to get tied up in.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, it's like, well, then what would bring you back? And it's like, I don't know. I've always wanted to compete against Harvey Lewis. If I saw his name on a list somewhere, that would entice me. But I have no plans to return to and race Mid-State Mile again. As far as I'm considered, I'm retired from Mid-State. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's just I had a really good experience with it. Everything I think about training for, going out and completing with my wife, it's just perfect. And yeah, I can test all that somewhere else. I just want to leave that right now. I want to leave that chapter closed the way it closed, man. And let everyone else keep going after it. You know what I mean? And I think maybe, I don't know, Eric or one of the other guys who've won, Chad, maybe they can relate with what I'm saying about, like, you know, just letting it go. Let the other dudes go out there and chase that, man. You know what I mean? Because it's a big to-do. It's a big inspirational, emotional freaking thing, man. It's a whole thing. And yeah, it's another one of those. Yeah. Yeah, man. I will continue to support and love that race and talk about it in a positive light, man, because it's a magical little spot out there in Tennessee, in the middle of nowhere. And like you look around, there's not even really any mountains. You're like, what? Where's there going to be a mile with 300 something feet of gain? And then it's off some farm road on some farm. You're like, okay. Yeah, it's awesome, man. If you haven't been to Mid-State, anyone listening to this, check it out. Check out the documentaries on it. There's a few of them. There's one called The Englishman, which is really good. There's obviously Chad Wright's, which is really good. There's a few more little ones people have put together. I have my Mid-State Mile Spectators documentary on my Ultra Dad YouTube page. I also tried to be a YouTuber and did not. Again, it just takes too much time, man. But there's a few videos from the early years up there still.
It's definitely a special race for sure. There's not many like it.
Yeah, it's original, man. Yeah, it's one in its own.
That's where I first met you. It's at Mid-State.
Yep. Yeah, man. No, yeah, it's a good place. And then the Tennessee Mile one is the one I want to talk up because I'm pretty sure I still have the 24-hour course record. And this is me telling someone to go out there and just go break that thing already. If it's still up, you just got to go run. I think, what is it? It's like 83 miles? Or is it not even?
83.6.
Yeah, 83 miles in 24 hours. Well, you want to do one more loop, so 84 something.
Oh, they were close. They had 81.4.
No kidding.
Yep, in 2023.
That is dang close. That's what, 2 loops off? Man, they were on it.
They were there. Yeah.
I'll give you, so if you want to go break that record, I'll give you the tips on why I could have done much better. Well, I didn't. I don't want to word this like that. If you're going to go break the record, do this. Spend the least amount of times in the corral area as possible, meaning don't treat it like a loop. Treat it like 5 milers at the very minimum. Because I treated it like a loop. I would do a loop, come in, and there was, what's his name? I can remember his last name. Thompson. He screwed me. Tomlinson, first name. He's not on any of this, so he won't be mad at me and butcher his name. But anyways, he crewed me. He met me there and was like, hey man, I saw you were coming with no crew. Can I crew you? And I was like, yeah. And he crewed me for 24 hours straight. So anyways, I would run into him and be like, hey man, here's this, give me this. Great. Come in. Hey, here's this, give me this. And then at some point, like 50 miles in, John Cox, referee, was like, "Hey, dude, you're not gonna break this record if you don't stop stopping." He's like, "You stop every loop. You're wasting like 30 seconds times every loop. That's a lot." And so I put a vest on, or I think I put a belt on. Yeah, a belt. And I treated it like 5-mile segments. And then I started just picking up the pace, man. So if someone goes out there to break the record, do it like that. Like, go out there, like, don't stop every loop. You're just going to waste too much time. Get you a bottle of water or whatever you have. When it's empty, stop or something. You know what I mean? And it could be done. And it's just a matter of like the time of year. The past few years has been really crappy. My year was really good. It was really nice weather, and since then it's like rained every time.
Yeah.
So I got lucky.
So you never know what you're going to get in December.
No, December's rough.
Well, let's hear a little bit about this most recent race before we start listener questions. So let's hear about the Fierce Dragon. 200 miles.
Yeah. So it's a 200+ mile race, and it runs from Vogel State Park out 20. We'll call it 22.5 miles out to a place called Skeena Gap, and it runs along the Duncan Ridge Trail. And this specific portion of the Duncan Ridge Trail is known as the Dragon Spine, and that's because it has very few switchbacks. So most of the inclines and declines are just straight up mountains, straight back down. So it's really rough on the knees. It's hard to get a real good rhythm out there, and they've nicknamed it the Dragon Spine. So the 200 miler, you run back and forth on that 20 some odd mile section of the Dragon Spine until you collect 200+ miles. The first year I did it, I ended up with 212 miles when I was done. And that's because it's a little bit longer per loop, and it was like 42 and some change per loop, and then there's this pointless elevation change that you have to go out and do. And yeah, so first year 212. This year my Garmin said 246, and I know that's not right. So we did the math. I used multiple mapping apps for the trail, compared with all my Pacers data and my data. The most simplistic way to look at it, and this is gracious to the race, is I have to do 5 loops, and each one was 45 miles. What's that off the top of my head? Is that 230 or 225?
I can't do math, so.
No, I'm not asking you guys. I'm not asking my calculator. I can't put you on the spot like that. So 45 times 5, 225. So that's 225 miles just with going from the shelter and back. And so we know for sure I ran over 225 miles. And that's why I keep saying 200+ mile race. And so the big kicker is that it has over 60,000 feet of vertical gain and loss in it. So 100+ feet of change. And that's Everest twice. That's Hard Rock's elevation twice. UTMB's elevation twice. It's all the hardest 100 miles you can think, really, with all those big elevations twice. It also takes place in statistically the worst week in Georgia for winter weather, which is the first 2 weeks in Georgia. Actually, it's like January 5th to like January 25th is like the worst weather window in Georgia. And so, like I said earlier, we did this race in 2022, stage race style with a cabin. This time I've done FKTs. I've done 56 hours running straight through the woods. I did mid-state with the 20-minute naps every 12 hours. So it was like we know what we're capable of for the most part as far as sleep's concerned, up until 50-something hours. Everything after that's no man's. We don't know. And so the idea was to run until I got tired. I knew that was going to be somewhere around 12 to 18 hours. Run until I got tired and take a little nap, and then take 15 to 20-minute nap and carry that on until something bad happens and it needs to change. And then so, yeah, man, we took off, and the town of Blairsville was frozen over because of a blizzard that came through. My wife's car was frozen at the house, couldn't leave the driveway. My car was frozen about a half mile to a mile from my house down at the bottom of the mountain that we live at the top of. And so I was shuttling my supplies. So I would get my four-wheeler, drive down to the car that was stuck down at the bottom. get into the car, drive to town, go get my supplies, come back, put them on the four-wheeler, drive to the house. And then once I did all this, I was like, dude, I need 90% of this in the car. Why did I just shuttle it all to the house? Because this was my race car. This is going to be my crew car. And then thank God I have an Outlander. It's like a four-wheel drive little trail car. And it made it up. And so we were able to load the car up. So leading into the race, we were dealing with these issues. And then so the trail was completely snowed over. And anywhere above 3,000 feet was inches of snow. And I took off. I knew from the start, I was like, I'm going to make my intentions known. I'm here to win this race, set the new course record. I know what I'm capable of. I know most people don't set out at 200 miles at a pace that I'm going to and be able to recover at. So we're going to see real fast what's going on as far as the competition's concerned. And I took off pretty fast, man. And like surprisingly, I go through the second aid station and I'm not even 400 feet out of the aid station climbing up, and I hear them yelling, someone else right behind me. I'm like, oh man, because I was like, oh, dang it. Now it's like a race. Like I was sort of like obviously hoping to just take off and, be pushing, but then be able to dial back and be like hours ahead. But no, there was a guy for the first 2 days. There was a guy either going into the aid stations with me. Some of them he would leave before me, and I'd be like, well, I better get to the next aid station for him, or else the tracker's going to look like I'm not in first anymore. But one thing I knew about everyone else is they were going back to the state park to sleep. So even if he left the aid station ahead of me, I knew I had at least an hour or two on him. So it would be okay. Even if he got to Vogel State Park and tagged in before me, he's going to sleep. I'm turning around going right back. And then so that was frustrating to know it was basically going to be a race from the start, no taking off the pedal or nothing. And the other frustrating part of being in first place was it was all soft snow. And so I'm sinking 3 to 4, some places was like 7 inches into snow, dude. On the climbs, it was horrible because you're slipping back. But on the descents, it was surprisingly amazing. And there's a few, Duncan Ridge is not really technical for the most part, but there's a few descents that are really, really rocky. And the backside of the main climb, Coosa Bald, is really, really rocky. And I ran the whole thing and didn't see one rock, didn't feel a rock, didn't even pretend to trip on a rock. And I was like, then I started thinking, this could equal out. The climbs are going to suck, but the downhills are like fun. Like, I don't know, man, this could equal out. And then so I do the first loop and I get back and I'm like, this is not going to equal out. My legs are trashed from like some of the trails like this. And now it's snowed on. And now it's snowed on and there's trees that have caught the snow. So you're running on like this slippery slant. And dude, your legs, you're just using so much more muscles. I forget the name of the muscle, like basically on the front of your leg, your front of your shin, the tibia muscle right there.
Mm-hmm.
Those were like on fire. Like I've never felt them before. Just from trying to like, imagine running on sand and like uphill. That's how it felt. And yeah, man. So I started getting kind of nervous about breaking the course record. And then I was like, how many miles did I just do, dude? And it was like 46 miles for my first out and back. And I'm like, this isn't adding up. Why is it so much longer? And I was like, when the course record was set, when we ran that, we ran into the park and the check-in station was the last campsite. So you run into the park, boom, the campsite's right there. Now you run into the park and you run it was like 0.8. I said 0.7 to be gracious, but you run 0.7 miles into the park, and then you have to run that 0.7 back before you start your loop. So that's 1.4 miles added. And I was like, 1.4 times 5, that's over 6 miles further just there. And I was like, plus the snow, I was like, man, this course record's going to be really, really hard to break. So then I was like, well, to protect the race, forget about the course record. Just try to win by as much as possible. Try to just be as fast as you possibly can in your environment. And so that took a huge stressor off of like watching that clock like, man, this is hard to keep up with this pace. So that took that pressure off. And then it was just like, let's just stay in first and keep putting a gap and, and enjoy. I'm putting air quotes up. Enjoy this race, man. You know what I mean? Not stress out about this record that was set in different conditions on somewhat different course, you know? And then so then it was just fun, man. We were dealing with all the problems you deal with in running 100-miler if you haven't run a 200. Just think of the problems you run into in the later stages, like the hot spots. You don't want to eat some of the stuff you really liked earlier, and then just amplify it for a 200. Like day 3, I was done with these. They're called SANS bars, SANS bars. They're about 400 calories per, equivalent to like a Pro bar or something like that. It looked like a trail food bar. And I loved them. They're soft and easy to go down. By day 3, dude, I couldn't even think about them anymore. And it got bad. And then like the only thing that I kept up with the whole time that I started with was that Hyperlight drink, dude. And I even started putting more scoops than I started with, like making it extra concentrated. And that stuff stayed. I never lost my palate, never gave me a weird gut. If anything, if I was ever in a weird gut mood, I would be like, oh, I'm just going to hit Hyperlight for an hour. And then once that's settled, then I'll go back to some nibbling on real food. But yeah, we ran into all the hiccups, man, of 200 milers. And then the naps. I got to the point on loop 3. So you're like day 2.5 or something like that. And I was starting to hallucinate pretty bad. I started seeing little Smurfs, but they were like stained glass. Their colors were there, but they were like stained glass. You could see through them. And there was a vine that was like swirled up kind of like a snail shell. And he was riding that vine, holding onto that swirl. And he was like, hey, you know, he wasn't talking, but he was just like, hey. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then I kept seeing it and I was like, oh man, well, I need to try to sleep for longer than 15 minutes. So we tried an hour and then they almost couldn't wake me up. And I woke up and I felt like I felt so terrible. The 15-minute naps felt way better waking up. Now I felt horrible, horrible, horrible. And so we were like, that's way too long. What we found out was like 25 minutes was perfect. A 30-minute lay down was spot on. 5 minutes to fall asleep, 25 minutes to snooze, and then that was it. And so we got on that train, and towards the end, we wanted to get home, so we started skipping sleep stations and stuff, and then the hallucinations picked up really bad. We had 2 aid stations left to the finish, 12 miles, like 4K of vert, all wet, sloshy snow, pouring rain now. And all the snow, it had now been raining for over a day. All the snow was now slushy wetness. And we get through this aid station, and we were just so wet, and I was now only really drinking Hyperlight. I wasn't eating anything else, and I just didn't want to take all my stuff off the nap, and it was like, whatever, dude, let's just get out of here. Let's go. Let's push through. I'm like, no nap? All right, badass, let's do it. And we make it like 100 feet out of the aid station, dude, and it's like someone turns off the switch. Not like someone turned off the lights, but someone turned the master switch off. And it was like back on. So switch, everything's off, back on. I'm talking hearing, seeing, existing. And it was like this flash in front of me. Boom. I wasn't there, and then I was there again. And I was like, what was that? Oh, okay, keep pushing. You know, Courtney DeWalter. And I so literally thought about her. Tara Dower. I started thinking about these bad to the bone chicks who push through this sleep stuff, and they talk about seeing panthers and hammocks and trees and stuff. I'm like, let's go. And then so I keep pushing, and then again, boom, like someone hit the master switch off to my existence. And I turned around, looked at my pacer, I said, we have to go back. And it's pouring rain. He's like, what? I said, I have to go back and shut my eyes for 10 minutes. But I'm experiencing something right now that I've never experienced before in my life. And I don't want to see what happens when I keep pushing. It's not that important to me right now. That's like, if I didn't have kids, maybe. Let's see what happens when the switch keeps turning off.
Mm-hmm.
But we went back to the aid station. The aid station people are like, what the heck? We sit down. I sleep for 10 minutes, dude. And I wake up and I feel just so much better. And I'm not seeing little spots and stuff, which where I was like pretty much the whole night. And I'm like, all right, we can do this, dude. And we start making our way. We're making our way up the backside of Coosa Bald, the big climb before your huge descent into the park. Everything's soaked. My hands are like numb from freezing. I'm using poles. I just have them through the straps. And I have these, putting air quotes up again, I have these waterproof mittens on. And my hands are just the temperature of the outside at this point, and they're wet with the So I'm like, I'm taking the mittens off. I'm stowing the poles. I had hand warmers, so I took the hand warmers, my bare hands, and I put my hands and wrapped them up under my shirt against my belly. And I walked up, and I was walking, and I was seeing, like, people screaming. So, like, footprints in the snow that turned to ice, you could see leaves and rock under that ice. Well, I was seeing people, like, screaming, trapped under ice.
No.
And I'm like an ex-cop, sheepdog, and, like, I'm like, now it's really getting to me, dude. These people needing help, horrified faces. Oh my goodness. So I'm hands under my shirt looking up to the sky, and I ascend the entire mountain like that. Just move. And my pacer ended up bringing that up later on. He was like, dude, you put your hands in your pockets, put your poles away on the hardest climb in the snow. Why? And I told him, he was like, wow, okay. I was wondering. But yeah, man, we descend down in the Vogel State Park, and we finished the race, and it was, I wanted to take my mind and my body to a place it had never been, to further than it had ever been. I wanted to push the limits of sleep deprivation and see what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that had a lot to do with nutrition too, my little light shutting off deal I was having. But yeah, man, I got to go out there and do that with my family. We had hardships from before the race even started. You know, we couldn't get to aid stations during the race because it was frozen, and it was just a lot of diversity and stuff we got to push through. And my crew, my pacers, if you want to know any of them, go look at my Instagram. The past 7 days, I posted each one of them. I wouldn't have done it without them, dude. And they were just monsters, each and every one of them. People ask at work, like, how'd your race go? I'm like, dude, it was perfect. You know what I mean? Obviously, it hurts. My feet hurt. My knees hurt. Stuff hurts. But it was literally, and I didn't break the course record that I wanted to break, but it was perfect. That's my answer. The Fierce Dragon 200 miler was perfect for me. And it was like, I can hang my hat up on it. You know, it's a race that for 2 years I felt like I needed to go back to. Now I can hang my hat, just like Mid-State, man. I can hang my hat on Fierce Dragon. Now I can go volunteer out there, maybe, or you know what I mean, and be that for that race. But yeah, that was my big to do for this last year, was training for that one and getting it done.
That's a huge accomplishment, and congratulations on the win.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, did snag the win. Yep.
Well, before we get into questions, we always ask the same question to every listener. Why do you run? When everything is so hard, life is so busy, trying to spend time with your family, do the things you need to do, why do you continue to run? What keeps you going?
So I run for a multitude of reasons. I run for purpose. Not that I lack purpose in other areas of my life, but I run for more purpose. I run for just that word, more. I've always wanted it my whole life. In some sense, when I was a little kid, the first thing I can remember wanting more of was Doritos came out with jalapeno flavored chips. And I ate those, and I remember thinking that I want to eat this whole bag. And my stepmom was like, stop eating. You like them, put them in the pantry. And I remember I snuck back out and I ate all those things. And that was the first time I ever wanted more and got it. And my entire life, it just, you know, whether it be drugs, alcohol, women, freaking good things, playing the guitar, you know, whatever. I would just want more. Running, and ultra running specifically, dude, you got all you can get. Like, it's all there. You can keep getting more. There ain't no apex. You know what I mean? They're setting new boundaries. They're raising the ceiling of the expectations of what humans can do every day, every year out there. And so it's always there. All that more I want is in running. And I have found a way to make it healthy. You know, you heard me talk about earlier where it wasn't so healthy for my wife and my family, but now I'm in a place where it's all, and I can chase that more in a healthy way, man. I can chase it through these FKTs and these races, and it's a safe, controlled environment, you know, somewhat safe and somewhat controlled environment to go get that, to fill that need, man. I don't know why I have it. I don't, but it's been there my whole life. Keep doing it this way keeps me out of jail. It's fun. I get to help other people do it, and it's got everything I need, man. It really does. If I lost it today, I told my wife this: if I broke both femurs and my legs got cut off, I'd find this in something else. You know what I mean? Whether it be breaking the pull-up record now, because now I weigh less. I don't have as much body. You know, my legs are gone. Or I'm going to master the guitar. You know what I mean? I looked up one time, there's no professional guitar players, famous ones that started real late, like in their 30s. They all pretty much started early, or in some instrument. They were musicians. And so I was like, well, I'll do that then. I'd start now and become famous. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, I'd find mine more. But right now, man, and for the past 5 years, it's been running, and I don't see it going anywhere.
Well, it's good for the mind and the body. So,
Yeah.
it's you can do it. It's something that, sometimes we take for granted, but there's a lot of people in this world that would love to be in our shoes.
Absolutely.
Literally.
Oh, 100%, man. 100%. I try to remember that out there in the races too, is that like I get to be out here, you know what I mean? Each step out here is a gift. The fact that I have a life that I can step away from.
Yeah.
I can step away from life. I'm that privileged to be able to step away from society and go do this run venture. You know what I mean? And, it's a huge blessing every time. I try to remember that when I'm out there, and I don't want to finish. Like, no, you need to do this, man. You get to do this.
Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
gift. It is a gift. Mr. Williams, it is now your turn, sir.
All right,
let's hear all these listener questions.
We got a few different questions here. The first was pretty simple. What is your favorite thing about the mountains?
Yeah, the quietness, man, the silence, for sure. The calmness of the mountain, the slowness of the lifestyle up here.
Yeah.
It's always peaceful.
It is peaceful. I mean, like every time we go up to do a training run, where we go to run in the mountains, there's nothing there. I mean, you're just there with nature. You don't have to worry about nothing else.
Oh,
You get to enjoy it. I mean, it is awesome.
Yep.
Out of all the races that you've done, what is your favorite low-key race that nobody knows about?
That's a really good question. I wouldn't say nobody knows about it, but I'd say Fierce Dragon, and we'll say H9, the race directors themselves. I feel like that race organization, the races they put on, has the potential to be really popular, or strike a lot of people's interests, but a lot of people just don't know about it. You know what I mean? So the 200 miler, it's $600, and that's one of the cheapest 200 milers by a lot. You know what I mean? And so for that reason, it's cool because you can, it's per mile. It's one of the cheapest ones out there. And then you're not just running in someone's backyard and eating, some stuff they tossed out there. There's legit aid stations with cots and sleep stations at this thing. You can really go out there by yourself without family, fly in and then do a 200 miler and solely rely off the race. And then they have so many they have everywhere from, now it's like a half marathon, the Coosa Challenge. So basically everything from like a half marathon up to 200 in 20-mile increments. You know what I mean? You got the 40K, you got the 40 miler, the 100K, the 100 miler. And so it's got it all. And they do it in the winter and they do it in the summer. Summer one's called Baby Dragon. They don't do a 200, but they do all the other distances. And then they have another one at another state park. And they're just really hard races. And it's funny, the people that come out, man, they're always super tough. Like the 200 miler, the guy who got second place, he has done a 200 miler every year for 8 years. He did a 100 miler every month of the year. The 200 miler that he's done a few times is this race unsupported, something called TWOTS, TWOTS. And it's an unsupported loop that you do 8 times, and he has the course record. But it's just a really gritty, hard race, man. Any race you sign up for through H9 is going to be really tough, and then like low key.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of it until I saw you posting about it even a couple years ago. That's the first time I heard about it. All right, the next one. If you could pick one aid station food, what would it be?
All right, one aid station food. All right, they're saying food, so I already got some carb drink or something like that. And I only have one thing, man. It's going to be something bland. I'm saying wheat bread.
Wheat
Just
bread.
a loaf of wheat bread. If I can only have one thing. No, that sounds like a challenge. So if it's like a challenge and I can only have one item, wheat bread. But if I could have whatever I want, mashed potatoes or something like that. Some a really bland, plain.
I could run a race on mashed potatoes. I literally, one of my backyards, I think Becca and John fed me mashed potatoes for like 12 hours straight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
With
Wow.
honey.
Wheat bread.
Yeah, wheat bread, man. I can do it. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had wheat bread in a race ever. Not one time.
Well, yeah, they don't keep it around. They use white bread, man, but there's no nutritional value in white bread.
White bread with grilled cheese. I could eat those for probably a entire race. But all right, keeping up with the aid station type food, would you rather have sweet or salty?
Salty, hands down. Hands down. Yep. Yeah, all the aid stations had peanut butter and jellies pre-made, and they then had to realize they needed just one peanut butter sandwich pre-made too, because I would not touch any jelly, any Debbie cakes, any candy, any gummy bears. I don't touch any of that stuff.
Never?
Nope.
Wow.
So if I'm pacing an ultra, that's not real fast. That's not Doug Moore and Georgia Jewel. Oh my goodness. I felt like I was going to fall out the whole time. Anyways, if I'm pacing someone that's slower and I'm having a good time out there joking, I'll eat whatever. But yeah, no, I don't eat no sugar, none of that stuff.
I wouldn't be able to survive.
No, I like to alternate a lot. So I'll do like a little bit of sweet, and then it'll go salty, and then it'll go whole food. Like I have to alternate, because if it's just straight sweet, I mean, my stomach goes. If it's just straight salty, my stomach goes. So
Yeah, no,
it has to constantly alternate. Like in my last backyard that I did 2 weeks ago, I got 100 in it, but it was always like, okay, this lap it was something sweet. Next lap we're doing solid, and then it was something a little bit saltier. So it's constantly rotating.
That's a great idea, man. And so like the routine I got into in Fierce Dragon 200 was, what did I have? I had plain water and I had Hyperlight. Extra concentrated, so sweet, right? Extra concentrated, and then plain water, and then I had this is funny. I had a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
That works.
So yeah, savory and then
Yep.
sweet. So I had it going, man. I would bite the chicken and drink some water and wait like 10 minutes and then drink some of the sweets. So I guess I do some sweets. Maybe I don't eat any just because I drink it all. I drink so much, so I'm like, no, I don't want it.
On the Hopper Lot, does it have a particular flavor, or is it just a little sweet?
It's like no flavor. It's weird. So there's something there because it tastes good. There's a question mark on there. It tastes good-ish. It's just like, because it almost tastes like nothing. It's so subtle. My pacer and I talked about it. We think we feel a hint of vanilla. Maybe.
I'll ask them. I've been writing them and talking to them. I think Corey, one of the guys on our team, went down to the Pandera.
Yeah.
So right after that, I mean, they wrote us, and because we did the backyard together, and I'm like, well, then I was looking into it, and then I saw where you had it during the Dragon, and then they shared it to their story. I'm like, oh, there's Justin with drinking this stuff. So that was pretty cool. So, but
yeah, man, it's very subtle. So have you had the Morton 320 drink?
Yeah.
It's a lot like that. Well, it's not though. That's about the closest thing that I could.
The flavor similar though.
Yeah, very subtle. Like you're like, there's something here. It's sweetish, I think,
That's
but it's not a lot.
Gels taste.
Yeah, because like when I'm looking up the flavor, there is no flavor. It's just Hopper Lot, and I'm like, I wonder if you could, if you didn't like the flavor, you could probably add your own flavor and
100%.
Constantly change it to whatever you wanted.
Whatever you wanted, dude.
And still keep the 100 carbs and 1,000 sodium, which is awesome. I mean, that's
so
an
I think that team. They have a guy, Hans Troyer, that they're sponsoring. That he's up and coming, could possibly go win Black Canyon's 100K.
Mm-hmm.
And they were handing him soft last night. I swear it was red.
So they probably added something to it.
And I was like, maybe he's a young college kid. Maybe he likes cherry. You know what I mean? Loves
barriers, whatever. And so that's what first got me thinking. But yeah, you could add anything to it, man, because it's so
Yeah.
subtle. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I was thinking. Glad we got that. All right. The next question is, why do you chase FKTs?
Yeah, that's right in line with kind of like my transition from doing a lot of racing and wanting to be a legitimate pro ultra marathon runner, to taking a step back, but also still having these things to shoot for. Like, let's say if I'm having a year of no racing because we got a lot of family stuff going on, whatever, I can still squeeze in an FKT for the sense of it's not stressful at all. So right now, my next event is the Double Scar FKT, 150 miles through the Smokies.
Right in our backyard.
Yep. Yeah. It's just labeled for spring. Yeah. March 29th. That's the weekend that I'm going to do it. But let's say one of my kids, something happens, something significant. I'm going to take off work. So there's a pretty good, my mindset's I'm going to do it this weekend. But if something happens, I don't have to. I can call it off. I can move to the next weekend. I can move it 2 weeks later. It's not this big depressing, I trained for Cruel Drill all year. My kid got strep throat. My wife's going to hate me, or work needs me, whatever it is. The FKTs relieve that stress.
Yeah.
Could also be dangerous though, because you could switch it to where you can have an impulsive thought and have a free weekend. Like, I'm going to do it now, which I have. And the first time I did Double Scar, that's what I did. I wasn't ready. I was like, let's just do it now. And, almost died out there. But yeah, that's why, because they're loose, man. You can move them around. They're not so serious. Let's say you've never won a race. You've never broken someone else's FKT, but you have this route that's special to you. No one else has ever done it. And you want to throw your name up on that freaking website. Go out there, run the route, submit it to them. And then now someone else has an opportunity to go beat your time, but you're up there, you're up on the board. And it gives you, that was the first really opportunity I had to feel like kind of special in the sport. I was like, I got a little Strava crown. You know what I mean? That's cool. And FKT is just like a big Strava crown. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Just legitimized Strava crown is all it is.
How many do you currently hold?
FKT submitted to the site. It should be, so I have the double Georgia AT, which is 150 miles. And that's one of those that wasn't set. I just wasn't even around. There's a single was, which, real fast guys went out and run a single. And I was like, well, I'm going to do the double, like the Double Scar, but the double Georgia hadn't been done yet. So all I had to do was go out there and finish. And so that was an opportunity for me to like put my name up on the board and feel like I did this big thing and put a route out there. And then one of my buddies came along and was inspired by it and went out and did it unsupported. So yeah, so that was my first one. And then I have Brasstown Bald, and I want to say I just did, the Duncan Ridge Trail. Yeah, I think I have 3.
That's good.
Yeah. Yep. And then, I'm going for the Double Scar here this spring, and hopefully it'll be 4.
Is that your third attempt on the Scar?
Third attempt on the Scar. The first attempt was self-supported, so I had a cache at 30 miles in and a cache at the turnaround, 70. And I didn't bring the correct clothes for the weather up there. It was June, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought it was going to be, super hot the entire time. Short sleeves. And no, at nighttime on the peaks, 6,000 feet. I'm not used to being that high. It was cold. It was really cold. It was too cold. And I made a catastrophic nutrition error at my first cache. I didn't get what I needed. That coupled with the cold, I quit. That was my first, I'm quitting this. Like, I can keep going. I have enough nutrition to march this to the turnaround and then try to see what I can do and maybe get the unsupported record. But I was like, or I might freeze. And so I was like, no. I called my wife. I told her the situation. I didn't ask for her. I was going to quit. I was just telling her. And she was like, okay. And she left the house and came and picked me up. She drove 2 hours, came and picked me up.
Yep.
At Newfound Gap Road. Yeah, at 2 a.m. Yeah. And so then I was like, well, it's really stressful trying to get out there and put a cache out. And there's not a lot of places to put them because it's remote. Yep. And so it's like, that was a lot of running around in a car. That's a whole day you need to go put the caches out. And that was exhausting. I was like, I don't have that day to take off work. And I was talking to Hunter, who has the overall record supported, which wasn't really on my radar until I talked to him. And he was like, dude, you go unsupported, you could break the overall record. He's like, there's not that much place to get support anyway. So most supported people's packs are already kind of full. You know what I mean? Because they, unless they have people running right next to them, muling for them. So he talked me into going unsupported. So that's how I tried it again the second time. That was when the hurricane, again, so I took off work. My whole work's leading up. They've gotten people to cover down for me. And they're like, hey, this hurricane's coming, but it's not supposed to hit there until like Friday. And it's not supposed to be a whole bunch of rain. It's going to be a good amount of rain, but not a whole bunch. And I'm like, cool. And so I'm checking the weather leading up to it, and it's getting a little worse. And then the night before, it's not even that bad. Like looking at mountain forecasts, I'm like, okay, so Friday, when I'm getting to my last like 10 hours, supposed to be pretty rainy, substantial rain. And then I took off, and like 2 hours in, it's monsoon, and then it died. It's on and off rain, really heavy rain all day the first day, and then it's just monstrous amounts of rain into the night in the second day. And then it was to the point, first time ever, I'm on the trail. The trail's a river, like a creek, up to, halfway up my shins, but I'm just going up. And then I hear a different sound of water. And then the water starts changing color. And I was like, what the? And the water comes over this like crest of a hill, like a raging flood. And now the water's like above my knees, and it's dark and murky. And I'm like, this is a flash flood. And this is 90 something miles into the double scar. And I'm like, I've been checking the weather, and it's only getting worse. This is the hurricane had now hit. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I passed another hiker, and she had an umbrella. The umbrella's like getting bent from the rain. And she's going back to the shelter I just checked in at. And I was like, I need to seek shelter. God dang it. I got to quit again on this course. And I was like, well, okay. So I called my wife, and she's like, yeah, go to the shelter. And then I went to the shelter, and that lady was there. I went past. It was a little old lady. And she's like, we barely got out of the rain and this, that, and the other. And she's getting all of her stuff out, her sleeping pad. And she's like, where's your stuff? I don't have anything. I'm going to sleep in that corner. I was like, I'm going to fall asleep really easy, really quick. I don't know how long I'm going to sleep, but I've been up for, a day and a half, whatever. And I fell asleep, and I woke up freezing with crickets all over me and like just miserable. But yeah, so I got really long answers for every question. But yeah, this will be my third attempt. And hopefully it goes better. It's like, it has to, right?
Yeah.
We keep trying to get it right.
Yep. I mean, how many times did it take Luke to get the record?
I think three times.
3 times before he finally got it.
Yeah, I need him to stay away from the double record until I'm done with my little journey I have. Because now I'm going unsupported, but I'm going after the overall record of just under 48 hours. But if Luke goes out there, he's one of those guys that can drop that supported record to like 30 something hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's done it. He's been on pace at the turnaround to go like, what was his time was going to be like 35 hours or something like that. Yeah. And I can't beat that unsupported. No, sir.
We just got to do it for him.
There you go. Spring.
All right. I got just a couple more questions here. If you could race one race, what would it be? Any race in the world.
Wow, that's a magnificent question. One race in the world. All right. Tour of the Giants over in the Swiss Alps. So it's 200 plus miles with 90 plus thousand feet of vertical gain.
Wow.
90,000. Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the big dog Super Bowl of 200s. You know how UTMB is like the big mountainous 100? Well, the Tour of the Giants is like the big 200 one. Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I might have to check it out.
Check it out, man. Yeah, a couple pros, American pros. What's his name? Random forest runner. John Kelly, who's done Barkley. He's gone out there. He goes out there with aspirations to win. Kyle Curtin, who won Bigfoot or Tahoe a while back over Courtney, ran it super fast. He goes out there and does that. Yeah, check it out, man. So it's called like Tour des Giants or something like that. But if you type in
Yeah, Tour of the Giants. Yeah, 200 miler. Or it's called like 340K or something like that. Yeah, Tour of the Giants 340K.
I bet Walt's doing that for his
I
200, 200s or whatever he's doing. All right, my last question is, I mean, you've already kind of went over it, but what all does 2025 hold for you?
Yeah, man. So 2025, I've gotten really into this restaurant kitchen managing, man. It's really easy. It's a lot of fun. It's fast paced. Stuff's always breaking. People are getting DUIs, getting arrested, whatever, dude. It's so fun. So I'm going to keep investing into that part of my life and try to become a better leader there. Try to become a better dad and husband always. A better Christian. I am a Christian man. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And so I'm going to go, we keep spreading that word. Probably better than I did in 2024 and the years before. I've never been a super bold Christian, but it is part of my life. So I'd like to kind of water that plan a little bit in 2025. Yeah, man, and just keep training at this hobby right now. And, I got dreams in the back to go out and try to do something crazy one day to make a name for myself, man. But I don't, nothing specific right now. I just want to be really cool to my sons and my wife and my manager who writes my checks. That's it. That's it for 2025.
No, love it.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I mean, you've got some big things lined up for 2025 too. I mean, that double FKT, the double SCAR FKT it's a big deal. That's a hard one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I look at Conquer 2026. They haven't announced it yet, but I look at that as a 2025 race. You know what I mean? You're going to train all 20, the last months of 2025 and right when the new year, you know what I mean? I look at that, it would be like my A race of 2025.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, do you have any questions for us?
This is pure curiosity, man. How long have y'all been doing this podcast?
You were episode 70, I believe.
70, yeah, man, because I knew of East Coast Adventures, but I didn't know y'all had the podcast.
Yeah,
we started it right after Georgia Jewel 2023. I mean, the first episode that we did was a recap of mine and David's 2023 Georgia Jewel.
And that's probably the worst podcast we've ever done as far as recording quality goes.
Yeah,
but we've learned a lot since then. Yeah. And then David, being the tinkerer he is, just decided to turn this room into a podcast room, and here we are. But it's been fun. It's been a journey. Me and Matt have stuck with it. We do it every week. I mean, every Wednesday we're in here. Yep. Sometimes we're in here on a Sunday. We'll do double recordings. So, but we'll take a week off somewhere to get
Christmas, New Year, stuff like that. We try to do a couple extra the week before.
But it's definitely an added workload.
Yeah.
Like you spend one evening just recording. Then you spend one evening editing, and then the next day you're trying to get everything uploaded. But man, it's so worth it. It's so fun. Like we did it for East Coast Adventures to kind of help with just, talking about races in the East Coast, and also just getting to learn runners and their stories, and getting to share stories of the runners. And it's been rewarding for us too. So it's been fun. It's been really rewarding. It's been fun, but man, it's a lot of work.
Speaking of Hyperlot we spoke of earlier, they actually reached out to us, like I said, right after the Backyard Ultra. And they actually were very thankful that we were showcasing the talent on the East Coast.
Right on.
So they were pretty happy about that, which I thought was cool that they said that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I knew you guys were around. I knew your races are around. What's the name of that one? So one of your races has actually been on my radar. You keep trying to get someone to break the course record. The 100 mile. Fort Frenzy. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, man, because that's one of those things like on a good day, I can do that, man.
109
but it's
miles.
Like, it's going to be hard.
It's
going to be really hard.
You're probably going to throw up, but it's good.
Yeah. But it's more. Yeah.
We need someone to come do it. It pays well too.
$500. 109.5 miles.
Whoever breaks the course record, 500.
I mean, last year Jennifer Russo she was one lap behind on breaking the course record.
A lot of people rave about that buckle too. It is a really
nice buckle.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so that one's been on my radar for sure, and I'm always looking for another hot.
And you know, another race that I think you would really be good at of ours is the Cherokee.
Yeah, yep. I had a guy run the smaller version of the Cherokee, and he said that thing tore him up.
It tore a lot of people.
So I mean, I think that like with your training for the double scar and all that, I think we only had 5 finishers for the 130K last year. It's tough. The 70K is I mean, it's tough as well, but you got a more lenient. You got 16 hours to finish it, and only 26 for the 130K. So I think that one is really.
I'll look into that one too, man. I'll check out, see where y'all run it at, and
July.
Yeah, well, we hope we see you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. I don't want to keep you guys too late. I am kind of curious. I know you just did your backyard, Matt. What do you have next after that?
I have committed to running almost every Knox Trail event. They do Knoxville Track Club does a trail series. You get points and all that. So I kind of want to try to do them all this year to see where I stack up in the trail series. And then I've got Pistol 100.
Okay, yeah.
It's more of a Greenway top 100.
I know about Pistol, yeah.
And then I'm going back to Mid-State.
Right on.
So it'll be my 5th year in that Sufferfest. And then after that, I don't know. Some smaller things.
How's your
Well, we started training late, but my goal is to do Pistol 100.
Right on.
I wanted to go after the course record, but I don't know. I don't know at this point if my training is going to be there, so we'll just have to see. I started pretty late with the foot. Still can't run on trails, but I could run really good on road now, so that's all I'm doing. I'm just training on road and riding the bike, but every time I get on a trail, man, the foot just goes.
Don't worry about it, dude. Yep, no, just keep running road.
So I'm running on road and just doing a lot of strength exercises with the foot, but I've got Pistol 100. I've got was it?
You get Mid-State.
Shallow
or dark
something Anchor. Hollows, the 50K. What is it?
Yeah, something April 27th.
Yeah,
when that is.
Shallow Hollow, I don't know.
I don't remember.
And then Damn Yeti 50, nice. Mid-State Mile, Yeti 100, No Business 100, and that's where I'm stopped at this point. So we'll see.
I know nothing about No Business, but the rest of those are pretty ankle friendly.
Yeah. And I haven't been back to Mid-State. So I ran Mid-State the very first year and the second year, and I didn't go back because I went through this whole stint of like last man standings, backyards, and I burnt myself out. And I haven't ran in Mid-State since. I tried to go to a backyard last year, and I was really pumped up till I got into the race, and I just kind of like burned out real quick. And I'm hoping like Mid-State reignites that flame.
Yeah,
Mid-State's different for sure. Yeah, it's more like a freaking party celebration the first while, and then everyone starts sucking. You know what I mean? Backyards are like, some of them, it can be like, man, this is going to be a long couple days because they take off and everyone's like, yay. Yeah, and then it just gets quieter and quieter, and then it's like, okay, now we're just watching these people suck. Mid-State's still like, John's out there yelling at everyone, making fun of you. I mean, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. He made fun of this one guy who said, "You're a runner, not a biker."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. The last time I ran it was when Chad was making the documentary.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the year you came out and watched us.
All you need to do is watch that documentary, listen to what Chad says about all y'all, and then that'll fire you up.
I don't need him to fire me up.
Yeah. I can
do that myself.
It was funny watching y'all on social media during that time.
But yeah, we were going hard. Yeah. Yeah. Or I was just pestering, and he wasn't doing anything.
No,
I was just trying to get him to come. And then he finally, when I won, he finally responded to me. All my messages. I know the job.
Well, at least you got that. Well, Justin, man, thank you so much for doing the podcast. Sorry, I know we went way long. We're over 2 hours at this point.
He tells everybody that comes on here an hour and a half, and I just look at him like, that ain't.
I'm going to start setting a little kitchen timer. dings, we're just going to hit stop.
Just say 3 hours. Just say 3 hours, and then when we do just 2:15, we're like, oh look, we were way under 3 hours.
Way done. Yeah. No, dude, I'm long-winded too. I'm long-winded. I love to talk. I'm a storyteller, so it's
it's been fun. We really enjoyed it, so don't worry about it. Our last one went over 2 hours too, so no big deal. But no, man, thank you so much for sharing. Some of that stuff I'm sure was hard to talk about, but truly appreciate you opening up, telling your story. That's really what this podcast is all about, is getting to share your story, who you are, how you got into running, what you've learned along the way, and what your plans are. And you did it perfectly, man. So thank you. And I can't wait to see what you do over the next year.
Oh, yeah.
Right on, boys. Well, I'll be following both of y'all, man, and I'll be following East Coast, and I'll be listening to all the podcasts now, man. I saw Tara Dower on that list. That's listen to that one. Yeah, I got a lot of catching up to do, man. So
we have Tara before the FKT and after. Yep.
I saw that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we got her before she went, so she was talking about it, and then we got her and her crew member on after to talk about the entire FKT. So it's good listen.
Right on.
There's some really good ones in there, man. There, Cassandra Clemens and a couple of other ones. There's
all kinds of good ones.
Really good ones. Heather
Watson.
Watson.
I've got plenty of catching up to do. That's what I like about coming across the podcast, like kind of later stages, is now you have all this binge-worthy material.
Yeah.
All right, dudes, I won't keep y'all no longer. I appreciate y'all having me and asking me to come on.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, dudes, I'll see y'all later.